Hello there, humans, hippies, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too. I'm Bushka, welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to talk to you about two tanks that at first glance probably don't look all that much alike. In fact, they don't really look alike. It's the things that they do that make them a little bit similar and different to the other tanks that they play with. Now, the first one that I'm going to show you is a T-34-2, which is driven by Owen Wilson. Good amigo and long-time member of the Patreon community here. And he is going to give you a hell of a game in the 34-2. With the old Clan Wars camo, I mean, the Moisture is talking a lot of crap, so he... gonna leave him there. The reason I'm bringing this tank up is I've got a great game and I wanted to find some kind of synergy between these two games. Not between these two games, between the games that I presented today. One is a Kpf.Pz 70 or an MBT 70, main battle tank 70 game. And both these tanks have this crazy kind of concept to work with. That is, they have horrible damage per minute numbers. Absolutely horrific damage per minute numbers. To give you some kind of perspective on this is 1900 DPM that Owen Wilson is running here with the 122mm gun on the T-34-2. The Comet, the tier 7 medium par excellence, that runs at about 2850 DPM with a 160 alpha shot. Now that is the key for this tank. It is a very much a high alpha strike gun. What does that mean? And what does that say about the tank itself and how you play it? It's pretty simple. You are a peek-a-boom tank, but you're a peek-a-boom medium tank, and that's quite a rarity. Most of the time you will run a peek-a-boom tank, it's going to be a big-ass heavy or a massive TD where you will not take any damage at all, and then you peek forward. You might make a trade where you'll trade a little bit of damage to return your big payload of damage, and then you bugger off back behind your rock, back under your box, and you work through it again. And one of the reasons I love tanks like this is they're different. They're not your standard mediums, your T-54s, your T-62As, your Leopard 1s, your tanks that just are vipers, that rely on tremendously large amounts of time on target and super, super quick armor mobility profiles. What Owen's doing here is just waiting. You can see he's got a ridiculously long reload. It's a horrible reload. It's the kind of reload that will make you bite through your iPad or your iPhone or your Samsung Galaxy. 12.5 seconds to reload. But the thing that this tank doesn't do well is brawl. Like, you don't want to step up and go toe-to-toe with another tank because pretty much everyone else in your tier will out DPM you. Now, there are various tanks that you can face hug where things will work, and that's great. But for the most part, that's not the case at all. And you can seize up to 1300 damage. Now, it's been painstaking dragging this damage out. But I love the fact that this is a tank that rewards patience above all else. What you do with this vehicle is you basically turn it into a hit point trading machine, or a trading machine where you take a shot only when it's available and you do a big ass bunch of alpha. There's a T-34 left down there. Now, you have the same alpha strike as the T-34. It's kind of crazy, hey? And in fact, if you can get a HE shell out, you can do awfully large amounts of damage to tanks like RU-251s and even the sides of STA-1s if you want to risk it, or Borsigs or any of those kind of tanks. But what this allows you to do with this tank is make some really juicy hit point trades. For instance, you can see this is where he look how long this is taking to reload this gun. Like, this is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. It's just nuts. But when you actually get the chance to sit down and let it reload and let it work and let it sing. Oh, he's tempted. Very tempted. I would have been tempted by that engine deck as well. But he gets rewarded for not going for the high risk shot there by getting a nice roll. 439. And then you just have to be patient. It can be so frustrating, this tank, because sometimes in Blitz, you just want to drop the hammer, press the adrenaline, and let them feel the burn of your enormous DPM. You can't play the T-34-2 like that. Look how much time Owen has spent directly in front of a target. And the answer is not much. He's removed himself from brawls a couple of times now. And that's the smart way to play this tank. That's the intelligent way to play this tank. And for all the fact that it is not my favorite tank, and I don't really love playing this tank a lot, I have to admit, every time I've rolled out in this tank in the past few months, it's been tremendously successful for me. It's able to go hull down. It's very mobile. It's a superb little vehicle when you can put it in the right situation. There's the Moisture. It was talking a whole lot of balls. And you can see that's where things get very, very interesting. That's a big-ass tier 9 heavy. But when you hit point trade with it, 1-to-1, you can do just about as much damage to him as he can do to you, because you've got a 122mm gun. And you don't have to do it all at once. You get to move about the battlefield, and you get to decide the engagement in a far better manner than he does. Now, the trade-off for that is obviously that if you get pushed on, if someone who's clever and knows the numbers on your tank pushes on you, then you're going to be in an awful lot of strife. Like if the STA1 had pushed, he would have just torn a heap of hit points out of Owen Wilson. There's no guarantees that he would have won, but he certainly would have put a lot of hurt on him. Because although this tank does have the ability to take some shots on the turret, it certainly does not have the ability to hit point trade in a long-term sense very well at all. That Moisture is not happy. Lucky! Everybody lucky for beating me. You're lucky. You're very lucky. Mastery badge, of course, 5,500 damage. And a really, really good example of how you drive a T-34 and 2. I thought that was an excellent game. What's that got to do with this next tank that's going to pop up here, the Kpf.Pz 70, or the MBT 70 as I'm fond of calling it? This is a tank with exactly the same outlook. It is a drastically undergun tank in terms of DPM. 2,244 DPM. That's not a lot, okay? That is not a lot of DPM. I mean, it's not wildly under the odds for the tier, but it's not good. And that's for a heavy tank at this tier. Mediums, like, bust it wide open. And it's especially notable that this tank will see tier 10. And tier 10 DPM is off the charts better than this. But that's not what we've got here today. This is a tier 9 game. And the thing that this tank does well is very much the thing that the 34 and 2 does well. It's got a tremendous turret, and it's got a high alpha gun for a heavy tank. You can fire a HE shell with this into a soft target like a waffle tractor, a Borsig, a grill, a bat chat, something like that. And you can do it with a modicum of ease. You'll get 90mm of pen on your HE shell because it is a 150mm gun and it will do 640 alpha. Now that's the weird part about this tank. Most 150mm guns will do 640 alpha as their base AP round. But this is kind of what's called it's like a rocket launcher. Okay, it's not like it's firing a standard round. It's the exact same round that you get on a T-49, that kind of feel. And what that means is your AP shell does 560 alpha, which is a really weird number for a 150mm gun. 560 alpha on your AP shell, and 480 on your heat, which is, again, like firing a 130mm heat round. It's quite an odd one. But what it does is make lovely, lovely, lovely peekaboo decisions. Rewards you for those decisions. You can see when you fire on the reload with this thing, you duck out and you do an arse load of damage. He's already at 3,100 damage and he is absolutely burning them down. This is going to be, I think, our first miss. Bit of an ugly one, but, you know, you get that on the big jobs. The T-30, though, looks like he's about ready to rip and roar. Here we go. T-30, 370, so he's only got the low-end gun. And you can see that Mr. A is doing all kinds of good things. Now, it's also got a very interesting armor profile. It's got a hell of a turret. There are weak points on the turret, and the sides are incredibly soft. but if you just show that upper glacis and kind of angle it up steeply, you're going to get a lot of bounces. An awful lot of bounces. Here he comes to help the T30. Look at this, 2 on 3. And this is where it's really ideal. Big doses of alpha allow you to double tap monstrously large amounts of hit points off the bad guys. He's trying to cover up the T30 there. Just give him a little bit more life, a little bit more time on target, and unfortunately for him, the T30 is just, yeah, getting a little bit confused and confuzzled. Wasn't great. 614 though is a fantastic roll with the APCR, and now we're face hugging. And this is very interesting because he doesn't have a lot of hit points left. He's got to try and get his ass away from that Conqueror, who may have a bit of trouble getting through the bad stuff there. Oh, nice big roll again. And a solid bounce. He's hit the adrenalines. He's getting up this. This is going to be absolutely clutch. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Yeah, that's right. Getting around like a absolute boss. And that was the miss that the Conqueror really didn't need. This has been a beautiful drive. Absolutely beautiful drive. And we've got another upset Panther 88. Stark McQueen. Ooh, cheeky. And I like that as a play because the Conk doesn't have the big gun by the looks of it. Or if he does, he was going for a Hesh round when he really should have just fired 2 standard rounds because that was a shoot the moon kind of occasion. Great play here and a real synergy between these two tanks. If you can play the 34 and 2 well, you'll probably absolutely adore running the MBT-70, the Kpf.Pz 70. I'm Bushka. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Plenty more coming down the pike. Stick around, you big dogs. 6,400 damage. 2 crackerjack games of Tanky McTankersons. Until next time, look after yourselves and stay safe on the battlefield. Bye for now.